Everyone, welcome to Mighty Champions Daily Live. We'll start in about a minute. Hi, we've been talking about self awareness and how change happens. So, how do we create the inner shift and all we've been talking about this week? We saw how the brain works when it comes to creating habits, how thoughts can trigger emotions and memories, and can lead to feeling like that's part of our identity, and why we could think that change is difficult because as we went through, the alarm system of the brain, rules that drive our reactions, we can through self-awareness, we saw how we could see the layers underneath our reactions and understood patterns, how they could change. Now, today, talking more about uh, how we can create lasting, say, transformation by understanding how the mind, body, and awareness they interact together. So, as we do, we'll just take 2 minutes to arrive into the practice. And for that, if you could settle down, sit comfortably. Eyes are closed if that feels okay. And then start noticing your body as a whole. Just a sense of yourself physically. And checking in, how are you feeling? Are you energized, heavy, restless, settled? Notice the quality of your mind. Is it busy, quiet, scattered, focused, in anticipation, replaying something? Wherever it is, making note of it. And then maybe noticing your emotional climate that you're carrying today. So, while not needing to name a particular emotion, just broadly assessing the climate you're in emotionally. And lastly, noticing your breath. following it for a few moments the way it is, just to get familiar with your breath. And then you can open your eyes. Most of us have tried to change ourselves at some point, something within us. So, whether it's I'll stop procrastinating, overthinking, I exercise every day, I'll be more confident. And usually we approach change with force or willpower. We tell ourselves, I need more discipline or I need to try harder. But maybe the problem is not that you're not trying hard enough. You might be trying to change the behavior without understanding the system that's producing the behavior. So, what we could do is, we keep trying to change the output. Say, um, we look at the symptom of the problem and not the problem itself. So we focus on the output, which could be I should not get angry or I need to stop worrying. But behavior is, as we saw, it's at the end of the chain. A lot is usually happening internally before the behavior appears. So it could be a thought leading to a feeling, leading to you feeling that in your body, then accessing memories, so some learned association and a belief because of that, an environment, a habit. So instead of asking, how do I stop doing this? We should check in with ourselves and find out what is happening inside me before I do this. Now, behavior makes sense when you understand the whole system. We often judge behavior before we understand it. So, procrastinating could lead to an association of being lazy. Uh, Someone constantly says needs reassurance, the label is needy. But what behavior is often an adaptation. Most behaviors, we can even say all behaviors, they may have served a purpose or they could be serving a purpose. So, say procrastination, it can temporarily protect someone from, say, failure, from criticism. Perfectionism can protect us against criticism. When we people please, it makes sure that we are not rejected. So the behavior could have been useful at some point in our lives, maybe growing up as kids. Um, Maybe we could be conflict avoidant because we never thought it was safe for us to speak up in our childhood. So that behavior at that time served a purpose. It helped you, but it may no longer be useful. So if we then get to understand what function the behavior is serving, we have a much better chance of changing that behavior. The mind, body, and behavior, they don't exist independently. They are in a loop. So there's a thought, we feel it in the body, there's an emotion alongside, it, it creates a behavior and then further reinforces a thought. Because the body is also responding to every thought. And the body, the state of the body, it influences how we feel. Our emotions influence what we do. And then, with all of that, what we then produce is an outcome. That outcome, it reinforces our original thought and the cycle continues. Now, say, say you're somebody who tends to get anxious and could be worrying about the future, could be worrying about, day to day things. So the thought could be something is going to go wrong. Now, with this kind of a thought, something is going to go wrong, the body is alerted. So the body becomes tense and then you feel anxious. So you start checking things, controlling maybe things, avoiding things, and you get some temporary relief by doing that. So the brain learns, good thing I worried because I worried is that I could have everything in order. And now I feel better. So the next time there is any uncertainty, the cycle starts even faster because it knows that if I do this, I will find relief. That's why saying, I should stop worrying does not work. The worry is only part of a system. Now, because the body, mind, and um, our behavior act in a loop, we could use the body to help ourselves. And it's a very practical way of changing our behaviors, changing our thoughts, because we could think, if I think differently, I also feel differently, but the relationship is working in both directions. So our physical state as much affects our psychological state. Now think about what happens when you could be sleep deprived or hungry or sedentary all day, just inside, physically tense. You may look at the world on that day very differently. So a problem can seem much bigger when your system, when your body is depleted. So sometimes the most intelligent thing could be to not spend as much energy dealing with what's happening in the mind, but to take care of the body. So say by sleeping, eating, walking, breathing, getting outside, maybe talking to someone, you could help the mind by easing the body. And it can help you create the physiological conditions in which it becomes easier to deal with what you're dealing with. Now, we speak about repetition and how important it is to repeat um, our practices, the change that we are trying to create. And we know that with repeated effort, we will see a different result. However, there could be some amount of discipline that we could need by making us sometimes, sit and practice when it doesn't feel like we want to do it. At the same time, there's a difference between discipline and force, because force, or say impatience, because with that we tell ourselves, I must make myself different immediately. I want to do everything together, and we want to read all the books and do all the meditations and do all the journaling. But force can create internal resistance. Impatience can also create, say, burnout or losing faith in our practice. So, um, and you also know, right? Like when we say, I must not think about this, don't think about a white elephant. That's what we think. So when I think I absolutely cannot be anxious, mm, the anxiety itself has started feeling threatening. I am worrying less about what's giving me anxiety than worrying about the anxiety itself. So when I set such a harsh rule for myself, I absolutely cannot be anxious, we begin fighting our own internal experience. And this fight is another source of stress. So change is easier when we do it with discipline, but also with some kind of generosity, because we could think then that this is what is happening right now. Right now, what can I do with it in just this moment? Awareness is, I think, we spent a whole day talking about awareness and discerning awareness. Um, so, awareness is what? It's the condition that makes change possible. It is not the change. We've seen this, last 2 days as well. We're talking about how awareness is a prerequisite for change, but it's not the change, or it alone does not create change. I could notice I'm avoiding, but I need to still make the choice. of acting differently. And if I notice I'm becoming defensive, by acknowledging that, I know that I can complement it with taking a pause so I can choose my next reaction. Um, if I'm noticing I'm just tired and exhausted and I'm so irritable that maybe I could be interpreting everything negatively, we can give ourselves a break, recover, nourish before making a decision. So when we become aware, it just creates a condition for us in which we are now able to make a choice. If there is no awareness, there will be no situation in which we can realize that I need to behave differently. An important question, I think, that we could all ask ourselves when we are trying to create changes. What are we practicing every day? Is it aligning with what I want to become or the change I want to create? But I'm just saying that I want to change, but I'm not practicing um my promise to myself to say my I want to become more confident. But you could be asking someone else what you want to eat for dinner rather than thinking about it yourself, or anything in which you are outsourcing decision making. You want to become more confident, but your actions do not align with with that intent. So if, say, every time you make a mistake, you're attacking yourself, what are you practicing? It's self-criticism. Now, because the brain can distinguish fact from a lie when it comes to what we are telling itself. If we keep telling the brain, I want to be more confident, but my actions don't support that, the brain will detect that and will not believe our efforts because we're not reinforcing that in our mind and then through our behavior. So if we set an intent for ourselves that I want to practice patience today, then periodically in the day, checking in, how are we doing? And keeping that awareness alive inside us so that next time there is a situation, we remember to take that pause. Because change requires new experiences. Now, um, when we give enough opportunities by handling situations in our daily lives differently, the brain keeps getting new evidence, and that's how identity begins to change through our lived experiences. One thing that I feel that we should be mindful of in this journey, wherever we are today and wherever we want to get to, is that we could prematurely giving up on ourselves. We often think that change should look like, you try something, you improve, and then you succeed. It's very linear. The graph only goes up. But real change looks more like you need to try and then improve, maybe fall down a bit, then learn, try again, slip again, come back, improve, slip, return. With all of these ups and downs, however, we know that we can get to the top. So when we have a setback, not treating it like it's proof that the old pattern has won and will never change. It is simply the process of learning. So more than, focusing on, say, feeling I did it again or I'll never change, which can become what's the point? You can reassure yourself and tell yourself that I slipped into an old pattern. Maybe I repeated an old behavior. What can I learn from what happened? How can I support myself more? And If, say, we are having a really bad day, what do you do on your worst days? Now, most of us, we have one of two responses. We either push ourselves harder or we give up completely. What we can do on our worst days, on bad days, is that we can take a little more care of ourselves, so maybe nourish ourselves. On a difficult day, maybe the goal is not, focused on your growth or journaling or anything you thought you do exercise. Maybe the goal is just maintenance. So if you don't feel like it, if you don't feel like pushing yourself on a bad day, you could do something to make yourself feel more safe, more supported, more resourced. And it could look different on different days, but some things could be eating better, enough water, sleeping, slight movement, maybe being around someone, and maybe taking some things off your schedule, spending time, whatever it is, some time alone, asking for help. So, so maybe, every day is not necessarily a day for self improvement. Sometimes it's simply a day for self maintenance. And there are different kinds of questions when we self reflect that we could ask ourselves. Some questions, by their nature, by the way we frame them, could be negative questions, accusatory, mm, judgmental. And there are certain questions which are reflective, they are curious, they want to understand. So we need to stay with the questions that have compassion and curiosity built into them and not judgment or accusation. So if we had to take pairs of questions, you know, what's wrong with me? Bad question. What's happening inside me? Good question. Why can't I change? Bad question. What habit am I practicing or what pattern am I practicing? Curious question. Wrong question to ask. How do I stop feeling this? Right question to ask. What is this feeling trying to tell me? Naming my feeling. So, being mindful of how we are making ourselves answerable to ourselves. Um, we don't want to for self reflection to become something that's unpleasant or that makes us feel shameful or guilty. Now, we'll do short practice just to integrate what we learned today. And for that, again, settling down and being comfortable, closing your eyes. And if you could bring to mind one part of yourself you've been trying to change. Perhaps, it has to do with, say, a habit or some anxiety, maybe procrastination. And if you could ask that part, what is it trying to protect you from? What purpose does it serve? Is there anything you need from me to begin responding differently? And the last thing is, what is that one small thing I can do for myself today? What is one small thing I can do for myself today? And with that, taking 3 deep breaths. Sending gratitude to body, mind, and breath. And slowly and gently opening your eyes. Thank you for being here, for practicing together. This week we've been going through self awareness, and next week we'll be starting another module, self management. So, thanks for being here, and have a good day, have a good evening. We'll be back tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Bye.